Welcome back. We are busy studying the individual Hebrew letters. The previous round, we looked at the Aleph, the Beit, and the Lamed, and we discussed the interesting phenomena that you get with certain letters in the Hebrew alphabet, where a dot or a dagesh actually strengthens the letter or give it a more explosive sound, like we get with the Beit and the Veit. But this week, we're going to look at the Chet, the Mem, and the Nun. Again, letters 8, 13 and 14. And as in the previous round, we are not doing the letters completely alphabetical as in numerical order, and that is for one reason. As we build our understanding of the individual letters, it also empowers us to start building basic two-letter words. As we progress, we will start introducing three-letter words. This week, as we look at the Chet, the Mem, and the Nun, we're looking at another phenomena, and that is end forms. 5 of the Hebrew letters actually have end forms, also called the sofit forms, and these are the letters Kaf or Chaf, Mem, Nun, the letter Pei, and the letter Tzadi. Those 5 letters have different forms when they occur at the end of a word. And as we will look at 2 of the letters this week, Mem and Nun, we will start introducing this varied or this different end form. Today we're going to look at 3 aspects of the letters. We're going to look at the sound, in other words, how do you pronounce them? We're going to look at the meaning of these letters, both in the modern script and in the ancient or the pictographic script. And then thirdly, we are going to look and how to actually write them correctly. And as we have end forms, there's more writing to learn. And one point that I just would like to stress, please start practicing these letters and memorize the pronunciation and how to write them, as I think this will help immensely when you start reading the biblical text to actually recognize letters and be able to reproduce them. Our first letter for the day is the 8th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and this is the letter Chet. Now, a Chet is basically pronounced as ch. I found that a lot of cultures actually struggle to pronounce the ch sound. Afrikaans people and Germanic people actually get the ch sound very easily. The letter Chet with a ch sound basically means a barrier or a wall. And when we start looking at words, it'll be beautiful to illustrate how this barrier or wall concept was innate to the Hebrew understanding. That's the letter Chet, 8th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and it is written as follows. First of all, from a modern perspective, it is a line down, connected to that a little bow down. Now, very important to note here, that little thing there needs to be connected, because when we get to the letter Hey, you will find that it's a very similar letter, but there's a little gap being introduced there. Let's do this one again. It's a downstroke, and connected, you have a bow coming down. That is the modern letter Chet. In ancient Hebrew, you have a line down, and then you have 3 little diagonal lines like that, and it represents a tent flap or a barrier or a wall. Our next letter for today is the letter Mem. Now, the Mem is the first of our letters that has an end form. So let's cover the end forms quickly. 5 of the letters, as we've mentioned, when they occur at the end of a Hebrew word, has a different form. Now, that word is the Hebrew word sofit. It means end. And when it is written at the end of a word, it always takes on this shape. The letter Mem is pronounced as M. Okay, it's the M sound. Mem, M. Now, Mem has 2 interesting meanings, and they're connected. If you can hold the tension for the moment, the word Mem literally is the word for water, but it is also the word for chaos. And very often when you stand back and try to understand how the ancients actually understood water, it was both chaotic to them, as in the sense of waves breaking onto a beach or onto a lake shore. But on the other hand, it was crucial to survival. So Mem is pivotal to how the ancients viewed the world. Right, let's look at the modern way of writing the Mem. First of all, we have a line coming down. Then again, like the Chet, a line coming down with a bow, but then it has a foot with an opening. So it almost looks like the Chet, but it has a foot coming in from the right inwards. And remember, that little opening needs to be reserved. While we're at it, how does the mem look as an end form? Same thing. You have a down line, you have a bow, but this time the foot piece actually connects. So on first glance, it very often looks like a little square, and some of the Hebrew fonts actually print that as a square. But there's a little bit more curve into it. The foot piece, the bottom piece, needs to connect to the first line on the left. The mem sofit always occurs at the end of a Hebrew word employing the mem. The ancient way of writing the mem is as follows. It's just a wave. And this is the representation of chaos. Our third letter for today is the letter nun. Now nun, again, like the mem, has a different form at the end, a different sofit form, and we're going to look at how to write them just now. First of all, the letter nun is pronounced as a n, as in n in English. The meaning of nun is seed sprouting, and it literally means to continue. And you will find when we look at certain words how that concept of seed, of offspring, of to continue, how that finds its ways beautifully into basic words. How do we write the letter nun? First of all, you have a small bracket at the top coming down and a similar bracket at the bottom, like that. Let's look at it again. Small bracket at the top coming down and a small bracket at the bottom. The end form of nun, called nun sofit, begins like a nun, but it extends slightly below the line. If I draw them next to each other, it'll look something like that, and there'll be an imaginary line that you can kind of picture for yourself. So the nun sofit starts off like the nun, but it extends below the line. Okay, these are our letters Chet, mem, and nun. Chet means a barrier or a wall. Mem means water or chaos, and nun means seed, offspring, or the idea of to continue. Let's look at a list of words that we can now start combining if we take into account the first three letters and the new three that we've dealt with today. So we have an aleph, a beit, a lamet, a chet, a mem, and a nun. Remember, at the end of a word, a mem always takes on the sofit or the end form. Mem sofit. And the same with the nun. At the end of a word, it takes on the form nun or nun sofit. The first word that we will look at is the word combining an aleph and a chet. Again, reading from right to left, we have the word ach. And just the first glance of that, you see the aleph meaning strong and the word chet meaning wall or barrier, a strong wall. And this is the word for brother. And the ancients understood the idea of your brother as a strong protection, a strong barrier against life and against enemies and against everything that a sibling is supposed to be. The next word is the word aleph mem, and here again we have a family member. Aleph mem sofit means the strong water. I don't want to say strong chaos because that is probably another meaning for mother. But strong water is understood by the ancients as glue, and that is exactly how they viewed the role of the mother. She was the strong glue of the family. She binds the family together. Where the father is understood as the tent pole, the one who keeps the household up, the strength of the household. The mother is understood as the glue of the household, the strong water. There's another word that is aleph mem with a different vowel point pronounced as im. Okay, so it's m, mother, versus im, and this word means if, what, or in case of. Take note that the vowel points, which we will deal with later, makes the distinction. Next up, we have two words starting with a chet, and probably from the perspective of biblical Hebrew, two of the more important words. The first one is the word cham, written with a chet and a mem sofit, and this literally is an adjective that means hot. Like when you would order a coffee in Israel, you would say kave im chalav cham, coffee with milk that is hot, chalav cham. Okay, so literally meaning heart, written Chet, Mem, Sofit. And the next one, I find one of the more important words in biblical Hebrew. And this is the word chen. Now, the word chen is translated as mercy, favor, or grace. Especially in the New Testament, the scholars very often equate that with the Greek word charis. The word chen is written Chet, Nun, Sofit. And this word, if you look at the pictures, is a wall that continues. The understanding of the ancient nomads had been when they would set up camp in the wilderness, that outer peripheral wall was known as the chen. In other words, the wall that continues, the barrier that continues. And this was understood by the ancient Hebrews as the grace of God. In other words, almost the boundaries or the delineation of the household of Yahweh. And I'm placing a little bit of emphasis on this because once we start digging into the language and start digging into the philosophy of the Hebrew language, I think the word chen is pivotal to our understanding of the character of God and of the household of God. The next word is the word MEM and NUN sofit. And this is pronounced as mean, and it's a preposition meaning of or from. In other words, if I say I come from Stellenbosch or from New York, I would use mean Stellenbosch, from or of Stellenbosch. The next word is a mem combined with an aleph. Now this word is actually not Hebrew, it's Aramaic, and the reason I'm including this into this list, once we get to books like Daniel, Ezra, and Nehemiah, those books are all written in Aramaic, and you would find a form where a mem and an aleph are combined, and this pronoun means what? Okay, pronounced as ma. In Hebrew, that same word actually just gets a hey at the end, and we will deal with that word in the following lesson. Then, combining a mem and a lamed, you get the word to circumcise. It's a verb, and maybe that is a bit humorous for this course. Okay, to circumcise, mal, mem, lamed. Next word is the word na. Here we combine a nun and an aleph, and this is an adverb that means if you please or please. We find that in the very famous passage where Yeshua enters the city of Jerusalem and his disciples throw palm trees on the ground for him and the call to cross over. They cry out the words of Psalm 118, save us, please, save us now, save us if you please, whichever way you want to read that. That is the word Hoshia na. And interestingly, that has become the word Hosanna, which by hook or crook has become an expression of worship, but the actual meaning, please save us now. And our last word for the day is again a family member, and here we combine the letter beit, and it's going to get a dagesh in, followed by a nun sofit, and that is the word ben. We all know the word ben as a name, but the word ben literally means son, and you get that from the first letter beit, which is the house or the household, and then the nun sofit, which means to continue. So again, from an ancient perspective, you see that the household continues. Ben, the house continues. And just sit with that. The only way that a household can continue is through the Son. When we think of Yeshua being called both Son of Man and Son of God, in English philosophy that's a little bit of a difficult one, but in Hebrew, since the word Ben means the household continues, we can see that Ben Adam, meaning Son of Man, is understood as Yeshua is the reason that mankind can continue. And secondly, when you think of Yeshua as the Son of God, Ben Elohim, again we see that the household of God on earth is given a chance through Messiah, the one that continues the household of Elohim. Let's wrap. My encouragement to you is write these words down and practice how to write them. So it's a writing exercise and it is a memorizing exercise, because as we progress and we build our vocabulary, it will empower us eventually to read the text together. And this is where we're heading. Thank you very much for today. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you like, please share, and let's build this community. And may the chen of Yahweh, the outer wall of his household that continues, may it surround you and be a blessing. and we'll see each other next time for the letters Hey, Vav, and Tav. Take care.